Picking up where we left off, the galaxy is pretty much embroiled at war at this point, and Kuat is now liberated. So the time has come to start looking a little bit further afield for our operations. The first target on our list is Khamener, one of Kuat's neighboring systems. Our newly built and battle-ready executor heads into the system to remove its local New Republic authority and instill Kuat rulership over the sector. The New Republic does show some opposition with a few modest fleets here and there, but they are quite inconsequential compared to the might of an Executor Superstar Destroyer. And our triple ring defense platform is erected without issue, securing the gate to Kuat on both sides. Meanwhile, on the other unsecured border of Kuat and the New Republic system of Fedale, an MC-80 carrier fleet arrives in an attempt to retake Kuat. This unfortunately ends up as a bit of a disaster on our end. One of our Victory 2s is annihilated, while our ISD-1 Sufugnov narrowly meets its fate against a superior force. Of course, with the station there, the NRL fleet is destroyed, but this situation necessitates the parking of our proto-executor at the gate for the time being. Taking the place of the Sufugnov is a Provocator-class ISD-2, an ISD-2 variant from Reaper's ship pack, which primarily features an extra set of barbettes on each side. This provides it with rather substantial firepower. With Khamener under our control, our executor moves to Alderaan to destroy the Rebel HQ located there.
Reporting back.
Next to it is also a memorial site to the victims of the planet of Alderaan, which was destroyed by the Death Star 1. Now, of course, destroying a memorial monument like this is a pretty heinous crime, especially to one that's actually pretty good looking, and I genuinely could not imagine what kind of fiend would do such a horrible thing. With Alderaan under our control, and well patrolled by our fleets, we look to Kuat's neighbor Fedale. The proto-exec MC-75 and MC-80 are more than sufficient for holding down the system, while a defense platform is built next to the Kuat gate, allowing us to secure both ends against enemy fleet incursions. The Mandalorian Deathwatch have already softened up Fedale, and they're likely to start to pester us as well going forward. Their campaign has led them deep into NRL space at this point. With our home field stabilized, the Executor is sent off on a bit of a deep strike of our own. Further over to the east of the galaxy is a system named Manda, which acts as a choke point cutting off the sector of Kamino. Now, up until this point, we had maintained a good relationship with Kamino, buying blueprints from them, selling them ships, and getting a steady supply of agents to do clandestine operations on our behalf. Building an even closer relationship with them will allow us to gain even more profit, especially as they start to maybe look at a little bit of a vengeance quest of their own. So with this goal in mind, we set our executor deep into New Republic territory and then subsequently into Hutt space. This goes badly.
Incoming missile.
The executor ends up getting stopped multiple times on its path through NRL space, and ends up essentially doing multiple drive-bys on various stations and local patrol fleets along its way. Most concerningly, though, it runs directly into two large factory stations and Admiral Oholevo. It's named after one of the dudes who does, like, localizations for the mod. Anyways, it's an MC-75 fleet that's set up by Reaper's ship pack, and the heavy MC-75 plus its fighter complement proved to be quite an opponent for our executor. The heavy MC-75 destroys the engines of our executor, leaving it dead in the water. Its mixture of heavy proton torpedoes coupled with its fighters and bombers causes us to take some pretty severe damage and pushes our shields to the brink. However, the Executor does prevail and manages to not quite lose its shields, and as a result, the New Republic's fleets are dramatically set back in their effectiveness. Meanwhile, back at home,
oh no,
there's a little bit of an incident. While my focus was elsewhere, my Proto-Executor and Fidele got a bit of a surprise visit. This is our first time encountering an equivalent extra large ship, notably the New Republic Strident class. And while a Strident class can't hope to match a Proto-Executor as a carrier, it can very well outgun us.
Emergency. User death imminent.
In addition to its guns chewing up my Proto-Exec, its concussion missiles also do a lot of damage to my various fighters and bombers. And to make matters worse, I had the Proto-Exec's bombers set to stay docked because I didn't want them to blow through their torpedoes. This ensures that they're only being used when it's absolutely necessary, because rearming them is a bit of a pain. But unfortunately, I missed most of the fight. And so by the time I realized that the Proto-Exec is actually being attacked and threatened, it is unfortunately already a little bit too late for me to save the poor thing. And so the tragic result here is that my first ever XXL duel and first ever XXL loss in combat has just occurred. However, the trifecta of the Proto-Executor's turrets, its bomber complement, which is eventually activated, and the local MC-80 of my own managed to bring down the Strident. And what I'm learning in this age of supercapital ship development is that the Proto-Executor is really starting to show its limitations as a ship. It is a worse Executor that also has just a bit more carrying capacity for smaller ships. However, Kuat Drive Yards are the masters of capital and supercapital design, and our replacement for the Proto-Executor is already coming off its line. And so the time has come to introduce the Pellers. The Compeller Battlecruiser and the Impeller Battle Carrier are not strictly speaking Kuat designs, so I'm taking a little bit of liberty here. The reason is because they're just really cool ships. Because the standards for detail for X4's 3D models is fairly decently high, Star Wars Interworlds has a fairly slow trickle in of new ships, especially because, as I understand it, importing new ships to be used in the game is a very extensive process that is in some cases even longer than the amount of time it might take to actually model the ship. And so while there are quite a lot of ships available, it's hard for me to pass up on the Compeller and the Impeller with that in mind. And they're also just really cool fanon ship designs, so... But we'll come back to the Pellers in a moment. Let's talk about Manda. After our Executor's long and arduous journey through New Republic space, it manages to finally reach Hutt Syndicate space. By the time they finally reach Manda, they're roaring to go, and it's time to break a few eggs on this blockade. Or at least that's what I hoped would happen. Much to my dismay, after destroying the defense station, we weren't really met with too much resistance, at least not compared to the number of ships available in system for the ICG to fight against us with. I think they wisely recognized the power disparity between my Executor and their fleets. So with that being said, our only real opposition ends up being some Providence carrier fleets, of which we do destroy quite a few Providences and their escorts. Although the ICG's XXL flagship, the Subjugator, was present in system, it evidently decided that it didn't want to be in system anymore, so unfortunate. But with the defense station destroyed and the ICG patrol fleet slain, this gives the Kaminoans ample opportunity to create a defense station of their own and lay claim to the system. And by doing so, this enables the Kaminoans to act as a faction of their own and begin to expand and commit war against the ICG. And with the Kaminoans set up and ready to go, we decided to begin our journey back to NRL space after sinking another Providence fleet. However, as before,
Stop right there, criminal scum!
The journey through NRL space is not going to be done without any interdiction. An MC-80 decides to block our path in the trade lanes and stops us at a distance of about 10 meters, at which point it then decides to teleport 14 kilometers away from our ship and then promptly die. Back on the home front, with our new impeller and compeller completed, we can send them off as a duo to start cleaning out the adjacent sectors while our Executor makes room past Alderaan. These expansions do somewhat increase the number of entryways into our territory, but not actually by that much. By selectively grabbing our neighboring sectors, we're basically creating a ring of corridors back into our own space with minimal additional connections to foreign territories. It does mean that I have more sectors that I have to control and patrol, but it means that the distance to Kuat for an attacker is quite a lot larger and more perilous. With PXL turbolaser batteries purchased from the Imperial Ascendancy, the Pellers both have an impressive capital gun fire rate, and the Impeller's complement of bombers and fighters allow them to easily counterattack from any surprise stridents. Hopefully. They're beautiful ships, they run effectively as a pair, and that is exactly what I want to see. Many intelligence agents died to bring us these blueprints. Seriously, I'm talking like 5 or 6 experienced agents died before I finally got just the ship blueprint for this resurgent. And from there, I had to commit, mercifully, just a few equipment thefts to get the primary weapons for them. As it turns out, some splinter group of designers from Kuat Drive Yards were secretly developing an improved version of the Imperial Star Destroyer, which then got folded into the fleets of the Ascendancy when their cohort got sussed out. I also have a sneaking suspicion that this holocron I picked up earlier might be somehow related to some of this, but I don't know. Anyways, the Resurgent class is a bigger, meaner ISD, more guns, 96 fighter capacity, more shields and hull, and it's a nice shade of menacing black. Comparatively, their size puts them somewhere between the ISD and the Battlecruiser Pellers, so they're not some dreadnought like an Executor, but they are strong, and they make a great addition to a growing fleet as sort of a main battle line ship. And because we have been growing as a faction, we have had an increased need for fleets of triangles and the occasional Mon Calamari designed ship. We've also gotten full access to the Lancer anti-fighter frigate, so some of those are going to be acting as escorts for many of my fleets. By this time, we've really managed to wrest control over the local area, expanding our reach out to most of the immediate surrounding systems and the Alderaan pipeline. The NRL is besieged on all sides, and the Ascendancy are pushing especially hard now in the south, since they've gotten access to ships like Resurgents and Pellers of their own. The Dreadnoughts and Battlecruisers submod for SWY, which primarily adds XXL ships but also a couple extra large ships, has done a lot for increasing the firepower of the various factions. They get access to all of the same things I do, so I'm not special except in the regard that I have the ability to make quite a lot more of them. Going back to the Resurgent, I feel that it makes a good ship to do things outside of my territory, so I make it sort of an expeditionary flagship, so to speak. And my first task for this ship is to send it to Rakata Prime. Rakata Prime serves as the primary shipbuilding hub for the Galactic Empire's southwestern area, where they border the Anahuac Federation, and again border the New Republic. And it is also here in this system filled with various wreckages of ships from the days of the Old Republic that we find the second piece of a puzzle that started when we took our research station. After a little bit of exploring, I find an old asteroid concealing the wreckage of an ancient ship.
Oh no.
After a little bit of exploring, I find an old asteroid concealing the wreckage of an ancient ship.
We are watching.
And the ancient ship then begins to speak to me. And it somehow also gives me a holocron. Meanwhile, back at home, an NRL Strident has moved into Troan, backed up with a single resupply ship. Our Peller group and a Resurgence engage it, and the Compeller under my control went straight into brawling range with the Strident, while bomber groups from both Pellers engaged the Strident in its support. Our massive fighters and bombers easily maintained superiority, and the extreme volleys of bombs and torpedoes rapidly whittled away the Strident's health and shields, while the Compeller did its best. Despite our overwhelming advantage here, the Compeller still dropped down to nearly 33% of its shields, which clearly showcases the power disparity between a Strident and a mere battlecruiser. Without the overwhelming advantage in bombers and the large carrier capacity of the Impeller, we definitely wouldn't have stood a chance here. And even in a theoretical capital ships only 2v1 of the Pellers versus a Strident, I think the Strident might actually win that fight. With the destruction of the second Strident, it seems like a bulk of the New Republic Navy has probably been extinguished at this point. The state of their economy and military is, by what I can see, quite troubled. The combined might of the Ascendancy, Galactic Empire, ICG, CSA, and Mandalorians, as well as more recently the Hapes Consortium, alongside my own assaults, seems to have weakened them rather tremendously. Following the continued trial of the holocrons, we find ourselves in the unclaimed regions of CSA space, near the old system of Korriban. On our way in, an ancient hulk in the distance captures attention. It's an old warship from a bygone era, a battlecruiser-sized vessel called the Harrower II. It's in pretty rough shape, and even rougher is the trap that sprung on us when the Resurgent-class Dubusek comes within range. Immediately, a fleet of pirate dreadnought frigates and a small wing of fighters engage us. Now, of course, were this a standard ISD, this might have been a bit of a tricky situation, but as the Resurgent has more guns and increased fighter capacity, as well as an elite group of fighters and bombers like the Scimitar and TIE Defenders, it makes short work of these pirates. And although a generous amount of the shield of the Resurgent is blown off, it is resoundingly victorious against the pirate swarm. We managed to that wasn't supposed to happen. I'm just gonna reload that. We recover the Harrower II, fill it with some of the friendly pilots who escaped from the destroyed fightercraft, and send it off to a local CSA shipyard where it can repair its very heavily damaged hull. From here, it will make a fairly safe journey back to Kuat, where it will get rearmed with new weapons and get a new complement of fighters. Through continued research and development of Kuat Drive Yards designs, we managed to acquire the necessary knowledge to produce a tried and true warhorse ship, the Mandator II Dreadnought. The Mandator II is an older design that saw action at least as far back as the Clone Wars. Our Imperial variant packs Imperial gunnery. It can go toe-to-toe with all but the strongest of Dreadnought classification superships, so it's a good addition to our armada. And in no time at all, we actually meet its first opponent, a New Republic Strident that decides to push into the Tapasi system and attack our defensive station again. This one actually took me by surprise, since I both didn't expect there to be another NRL Strident, and because I had planned on sending the Mandator II to guard Tapasi anyways, so it was already kind of on its way up there anyway. It really cannot be understated that the Strident is a strong ship. It is not the only XXL ship available to the New Republic, but is one of the only. I moved the Mandator II into position so that it and the defense platform can lay into the Strident with all they have. And even then, the Strident still manages to destroy several defense modules on the platform and almost completely strip off the shield of the Mandator II. By itself, without ample bomber support, it may very well have lost in 1v1 against the Strident. And sometime later, I happened to find out that the system of Brental, which borders two of our sectors, actually had the New Republic's XXL Dreadnought shipyard in it, which is why the Strident seemed to keep appearing in the system and then attacking me. They were literally being built there on the edge of it, and in fact, they were actively in the process of building yet another strident when an MDW patrol showed up to poke at the station a bit, which is actually how I ended up realizing it was there. I suppose that goes to show how little attention I was paying, since I somehow didn't notice it. I mean, for goodness sakes, you can see it from halfway across the sector. I don't know how I missed it. Speaking of the Mandalorians, I also find out sometime later that a Mandalorian Deathwatch Sundari class just randomly decided to go to Alderaan, and immediately used its mass drivers to attempt to annihilate one of my Enforcer frigates assigned to a local Victory 2 patrol. So I pull them back to a safe spot and wait for the nearby Executor to arrive. In the meantime, it destroys several of my trade ships passing through the area for some reason. The station does its best to fight back, but at the rate of damage coming in by itself, that would be way too close of a call. Fortunately, the Executor makes it in time to slay the mighty Sundari. After a good chunk of time spent researching a new super capital, and after several hours of building, we managed to get a Mandator 3. It is a very big ship with a lot of guns, and it gets to christen its firepower on an NRL spice farm that was, for some reason, located about 800 kilometers off system center. Suffice it to say, this ship can definitely 1v1 a Strident. Now, one of the problems I've continuously run into pertains to Alderaan. Although I've taken this system from the Rebels, that does not stop them from continuously requesting the building of new stations to replace the ones that I've destroyed. And so a bit of a whack-a-mole journey has been undertaken by me to just repeatedly destroy them over and over again before they get the chance to build them up. It's a little bit of a weirdness in the design, but it's a total conversion mod. They're doing the best they can. Eventually, this system will act as a second shipbuilding hub for me, so we're going to be putting up a shipyard at some point, as well as several factories to take advantage of the local resources. As it turns out, Alderaan is really resource rich. There's a bunch of asteroids everywhere for some reason. It's very convenient that they're here. I'm sure they've been here a long time. I mean, they're asteroids. They can't be new, right? Anyways, returning to our mysterious journey of the holocrons, we managed to make it all the way to a system known as Korriban. After enduring a few more dark thoughts and creepy commentary from the head ghost, I managed to find a third holocron. We're also visited by maybe the specter of a weird ship shaped like a harrower?
We are watching.
So wake up. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Anyways, at this point we've come to quite a stirring discovery. It turns out that behind this gate is an entire fleet of Sith ships, as well as various stations and shipyards. That's a lot of Sith. Apparently they've been here for quite some time, building up, waiting for their chance to attack the galaxy, and apparently I've created the right conditions for them to do so. And it is at this point that we come to a pretty significant decision. Either we can expose the Sith and endeavor to destroy them, or we can join forces with them. Now, I probably don't have to tell you what the decision's going to be. We've spent several days of game time at this point, basically causing everybody to go to war with one another, weakening the New Republic and the core worlds, and becoming a bit of a superpower of our own. So it goes without saying, we're going to be joining the Sith. And it is at this point that we reveal our true identity of Darth Dockyard. Yes, it did take me a lot of time to find a good Darth pun name based on Kuat Drive Yards. I did the best I could.
Hello there.
You again? Oh, frick. Before we get to that point, though, another Mandalorian Sundari Dreadnought attacks Alderaan, again, requiring some intervention from myself, this time in a harrower too.
Oh, critical.
Awaiting orders.
Now, unfortunately, the Harrower 2 is a couple steps down in terms of combat capabilities compared to the Sundari, so the best it can do is throw some cruise missiles its way and hope for the best. The Harrower 2's primary armament is a diamond boron cruise missile launcher, which, for whatever reason, it was quite effective against the Sundari, but it definitely seemed to be having some issues, just not quite hitting it in a lot of cases. I can't say for sure why. The result of this fight is actually almost fatal, but our newer Mandator 3 arrives just in time to finish the blow.
Awaiting orders. Awaiting orders. Awaiting orders.
Awaiting orders.
But anyways, now that we have gotten a close relationship with the Sith, we gain access to a number of their designs, and eventually with some research we will also be able to make the Inquisitor Annihilator XXL. With this we can supplement our forces with some dark power in the battles to come. To go along with this, we will be building several new stations in Alderaan, including a shipyard designed to leverage the unique economy of the Sith, in addition to our already established economy. 2 shipyards are better than 1. To further go into that, the Sith production method for its ships and stations is based off of the Terran production method from Vanilla X4. It's a simplified economy, so it generally tends to be a little bit easier to make things with it. And in SWY, the Sith production method also applies to a lot of Imperial ships, so many of the designs that I've been making up until now can actually be made with their resource methods. By this point in the game, the Sith have had ample time to prepare their fleets, including an Inquisitor Annihilator, which serves as their XXL flagship. And now that hyperspace lanes from Zyos and Dromon Kaas have been activated leading into Corporate Sector Authority space, they are primed and ready for their war against the rest of the galaxy. I'm sure it's not entirely evident for those who aren't familiar with X4 how long this game has actually been going, but this is probably 4 to 5 days of real time in this save. So suffice to say, I've been doing this run for a long time at this point. And by this point in the run, we really are pretty dry on storytelling mechanisms. So there's one last task that I want to do and one experience with the ship that I've never gotten to touch in SWI before. So the final episode for this series is probably just going to be a little bit of combat, me showing off probably that final ship, and I think taking Coruscant, and that'll probably be a good place to call an end. Because other than that, it's really just going to be me sieging stations and occasionally shooting ships, which is fun, but I need a little bit more than that. As always, I appreciate anyone who watches this far, and if you're interested in the next video, you know what buttons to press.